Hi, this is Pavel with a C# exercise. This actually will be two exercises in one. Chapter 7 and exercise 18 and also exercise 19 because they are 19 is a modification of the 18. Anyway, this is going to be we will be practicing some how to write methods and loops. We are going to write a method Square of Asterisks that displays a solid square, in other words the same number of rows and columns, of asterisks whose side length is specified in integer parameter side. In other words, there will be a variable called side where the user will enter the side of the square, and based on that number we will output a square. So if the user enters 4, then we will make something like this, 4 rows and 4 columns. This doesn't look like a square because it's a little stretched out, but it is the same number of rows and the same number of columns. We are going to incorporate this method into an app that reads an integer value for side, in other words what the user will enter, and outputs the asterisks with the Square of Asterisks method. In other words, we will need to use a method rather than write everything in like a one procedure. Alright, so the first thing we need to do, as we are being instructed, we need an integer side that will collect the user input. So let's do the integer side and initialize it to 0. And that's the only input that we will be receiving. The user will enter the side and we will draw the square. So I'm going to do it so we can repeat these until the user decides to quit. So not just like a one square, but the user will be given an option to continue and keep making squares. And I'll do a do loop for this, and while. Okay, so what this is going to do, it's going to loop until user decides to quit. So now within the loop we will ask the user to enter the side. So we will do a console.write line and something like please enter number of sides, and the user is going to enter the number and we are going to save it into our variable side. So our side will equal, and since this is an integer, we need to convert it to integer, to integer 32, whatever the user enters. So console.read line. So again, the user enters a number and we will store a number in our variable side. However, we're not going to process the loop over here. We're going to create a method that will process it. So it's going to be a public, it's going to be static, because the main method is static. So this one has to be static as well, since we are sending a variables or arguments to it. So void, it doesn't return anything, it will simply display things, and Square of Asterisks. How do you spell that? Whatever. How do I like that? And we will supply the side. In other words, it will loop as many times or as this number says. In other words, if the number is 5, then we will do 5 rows and 5 columns. And one thing I forgot, let's do over here one more variable, and let's do it a character. I'll just call it character, and that's going to be the asterisks. We don't have to do it, but this is kind of like a constant. I'm not making it a constant though, I'm just simply making it a variable. So when I'm writing this function, I'm not going to write a star, I'm actually going to write a variable called character, because later, like I said, in the 19th, we will modify these to enter whatever other character the user wants. In other words, it could be asterisks, it could be letters, numbers, and we will use the same function to output them. So in this case, we're just using the star, the asterisk. So back to our function. So first thing we're going to do, our loop of rows, we will start from 0, and r is less than side, and r is increased after each iteration, of course. So this loop will take care of the rows. Now we need to take care of the columns. So we go to do another loop, and it's going to be the same loop, because it's a square, so it will have the same number of asterisks. So c is less than side, and c plus plus. And within this loop, we will start printing the characters. So we will do Console.Write, not write line, because we are writing consecutive characters of the character. And well, you know, in order to use these character, we don't have an access to it from this function. So I'm going to, in our do loop, I'm going to call this function, so we don't have all the squiggly lines there. And we'll simply call it directly. There's no a return value, and we will pass the side, and we will pass the character. So over here we have to accept the character, so we will do character. So the function expects the number of sides, and it expects the character that is going to be output. In this case, it's going to be the asterisk. Alright, so over here we have the character output, and it creates the the first row, and then after that we need to move to the next one. So we need a new line. So we will do console that this time it's a right line, because we are just simply moving to a new line, and then we will go back to the loop and output next row, and so forth. Alright, so over here we will loop, since we have the do loop. How many times are we gonna loop? Well, until the side is greater than 0. In other words, if user enters 0, then it means that the user wants to quit, and the application will quit. That should be all. Let me see what we get if I run it. So if I enter number of sides 5, here I am, number of sides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get a 5 by 5 square. If I enter 6, it's 6, obviously 7, you can see how it's increasing. And if I enter 0, then the application quits. So let's recap this quickly. Again, I have the sides, I have the character that I want to use. In this case, it's asterisk. We didn't need this, so I could just, since this was like a specific that we want asterisk, I could just use this and not get the character in it, and it will do the same thing. So again, if I did 5, it would output 5 characters, 7, and so forth, and 0 will quit. But if you use it this way, it's easy to change the character directly. You know, we could, it's like a constant. So let me just undo all that. And now let's do the second part. which is to use any character the user wants. In other words, the user will not only enter the number of sides, he or she will also enter the character that he or she wants to be printed. So that's going to be very simple. The only thing we really need to do is after we ask for the sides, we are going to also ask for the character. So we are going to basically override this. So we're going to do Console.Write line. Please enter the character for the square. And we are going to obviously save that into our character variable. So we're going to do our character equals, and we have to convert it to character. Convert to character. Console.Read line. Alright, so now we have the character. Now we have the character the user wants. So this is just a default value. It could be just empty as well. And since we are going to override it right here, and we just pass the character and the side into a function, and it should work just the same. So let's see. If I enter 5, it asks for the number of the character. So how about I enter percentage? And now it does 5 by 5 with the percentages. I enter 6, and let's say axis. So it does axis. I enter 7, and let's say I enter a number 8. So it does 8, and so forth. If I enter 0, it should quit. Oh, it first asks us for the character. All right. What's happening here? After even though I enter 0, and the loop should quit, the rest of the loop is still going to execute. So when I enter 0, it still goes to this line and asks for the character to enter. So that's a very simple fix. We will do an if statement. If the side is greater than 0, then we will execute this code. So I'll just copy paste it into the if statement. And if it is not, then it captures the 0. It comes over here, and it quits the loop. So let's test that. So 5 sides. I want letter T. All right. I want 6 sides, and I want letter P, and it does it. If I press 0, now it quits directly. Now, if I press 0 right away, it will quit. If I press 1, let me try these values, then it will ask for the character, and outputs 1p. You can see it right here. 2, it will simply do 2 by 2, and you can see it is 2 by 2 right here. So it works even with that. However, if I enter a string instead of a character, so if I say 5 and I want let's say something like that as the character, then it will simply throw an error because this is not convertible to a character. So there's a way to fix it. Let me just show you how to do that. Let me just quit the debugging. In order for us to do this, all we have to do is, in case the user enters more than 1 character, we will only get the first character. So we'll come over here where we are capturing the character that the user enters, and after the read line we'll do substring with start index of 0, the first character, and the length of 1. We only want the 1 character. So this will only return 1 character, no matter how many, what the length of the string the user enters. So if I enter, let's say 5 sides, and the character, it should be 5 by 5 of Qs, because only the first character should be taken. and it is, you can see 5 by 5. Again, if I do, let's say 10, and I do x, y, z, it should only take the x and do 10 by 10 with x's, and it does. And if I enter 0, of course, it should quit. Alright, so here you have it. The exercises 18 and 19, a simple loop, and you know, to write the square. And the logic is, I think, fairly straightforward. The user enters side, the user enters the character. We call the function, we pass the side and the character to it, and it will output you know, the character based on how many sides or the user wants. Alright, so I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Take care.